the most democratic of institutions because no one can tell you what to read and when and how. The thing that I like, one of the many things actually that I like about working in a public library is that we make an impact in our communities every single day. This picture of this adorable little girl was taken after she met her summer reading goals, and our prize for that was a book. So she's standing there proudly showing everyone the book that she got because she met her summer reading goals. And seeing that happy little face is something that you see every day in a public library. We make that kind of impact in people's lives, and that's so powerful. And libraries are open to all. And this quote from Lady Bird Johnson, perhaps no place in any community is so totally democratic as the town library. The only entrance requirement is interest. And the statement at the bottom is actually from me. When I talk to people about working in a public library, I say, the beauty of public libraries is that we are open to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor or you're an immigrant, or you don't have to take a test to come in. You don't have to have a license. We are open to absolutely everyone, and I love that. The challenge of public libraries is that we are open to all. So let's get on to the next part of my presentation. So we talked about the good. I don't really like the word bad, so let's say the challenging parts of working in a public library. And there are a few. So I talked about public libraries being community hubs. And so what is happening in our communities is also happening in our libraries. So I have some photos to share with you. This one happens to be from the San Francisco Main Library. This is one of their homeless patrons. And I think probably some of you have heard about the San Francisco Public Library, that their main library a number of years ago was completely overrun by their homeless residents who were taking a bath in the bathrooms, and I think there were some drug problems, and it was an uncomfortable environment. And so what San Francisco Public Library did is they hired a social worker who actually became part of their staff, and she's in the building, and she has about 12 staff working with her part-time to reach out to this part of their community, the homeless population, and connect with them and try to get them in touch with services. So I thought that was a great approach. Instead of just saying the homeless problem is not our problem as the public library, they really took this on and are trying to serve this part of their community. So again, what happens out in our community happens in our library as well, and we deal with, let's see, it looks like we have a question here. Do you remember when the San Francisco Library hired their social worker? You know, I want to say it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember it was big news at the time. They were probably the first public library in the country to hire a social worker to be part of the library staff. I heard her speak a couple of times. She is phenomenal, and she does such good work there. And we discussed the idea in Mountain View, but we don't have quite the level of problems. We do partner with our local community services agency to come in the library periodically. Ooh, what is one of the craziest issues you've had while working in a public library? Well, this is a great point in the presentation to talk about that, because we're talking about behavior issues on this particular slide. So I can tell you in the past year, well, we deal with medical emergencies, and I just love our first responders. They are there when we need them. So we've dealt with a number of strange medical emergencies. Because the library is open to everyone, we have a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different personalities. So sometimes there's conflict between people who are in the building and they don't always get along, and we have to deal with that. People who don't want to pay their fines and yell at staff about that. If you can imagine all the kind of behavior issues that are out there in the community can happen in a public library as well. Oh, how great. Someone is sharing a video about the social worker in the San Francisco Public Library. Take a look at that. It's just really a phenomenal program. Probably most public libraries don't have the large number of homeless populations like they do in San Francisco, but it's something that we all deal with. And I certainly have a few regular homeless folks in Mountain View, and generally I don't have any problems with them. They come in and they use the library appropriately, but they make other people uncomfortable. And that's always a challenge. I've had people come in my office and say, you shouldn't let the homeless people come in here. And I'm really sad when I hear that, because they're part of our community. They have a right to use the public library the same as anyone else, but they do make other people uncomfortable. So just all kinds of behavior issues. Now, one of the innovative programs that was started by my predecessor about 6-7 years ago in Mountain View was we were starting to see kind of an uptick in some of these behavior problems. Oh, have you ever had to kick anyone out? Oh my goodness, are you kidding? All the time. Which reminds me, I wanted to mention that every library needs to have a behavior policy laying out how you expect people to behave in the library. And if they don't behave, they get kicked out. And it depends on how serious the behavior issue is. Generally, we'll give them a warning, and maybe we'll kick them out for the day or the week. But I do work with our city attorney's office, and probably a dozen, maybe not a dozen, maybe 6 to 8 times a year, I've got someone who I need to kick out. And so I work with the city attorney's office, and they send out a letter to this individual. And they tell them, you cannot come back to the library for a year because of, and we lay out kind of what their behavior issues were. And then on this date, you're welcome to come back, but you need to meet with the library director first to discuss your behavior. I see a question here, is a behavior policy the same thing as a code of conduct? Yes, absolutely, and we call them different things. Some libraries call them behavior policy, some call it a code of conduct. If you've never seen one, you can go to probably any public library website and read their policy on how they expect people to behave in their libraries, and you'll see a lot of similarities. Some are a little more strict than others, and some issues are included by some libraries and not by others. I'll give you an example, and this is a tricky one. Some of our folks come in, and it could be the homeless or other folks in the community for whatever reason, and we have a problem with how they smell. And other people complain about it, and they want us to kick them out because of the way they smell. Some libraries actually have in their behavior policy that you can be asked to leave for strong body odors. My city attorney said that's probably not going to fly, so I don't have it in my behavior policy, but I do have a general statement in there that says any disruptive behavior that's interfering with others' use of the library could be cause for your being asked to leave the library. Where do I think is the best place to post a behavior policy? That is a great question. Oh, strong perfumes. Yes, absolutely. That can be an issue and has been an issue in one of my libraries. I don't post it in the building, and I probably should. It's on our website, but we have little flyers made up with our behavior policy that we hand to people who are having an issue, and we make sure they have a copy of the policy, and we reference the part of the policy that they might be having an issue with. So we do hand it out in the library. Yeah, and the strong perfume question, I actually had a patron who said that he was having a problem with this other patron who came in with a strong perfume, and he wanted to ban her from the building, and I really couldn't do that, so that can be a tricky one. Yeah, so I see an LOL there. So there are all kinds of behavior issues in our libraries, and it's part of the job. You know, we're part of the community, so we're dealing with those issues. But I would say 95% of the time, everyone behaves themselves. And that's actually amazing to me, given the large variety of people that we see in our buildings every day. So let's see. I have one more community issue. So can anyone guess what community issue is represented by this photo? If you have a guess, go ahead and type it in the chat box there. Service dogs, pets, service animals. Well, service animals is a great bringing pets in. Yeah, so it looks like service animals and pets. And certainly those are issues. Service animals is an interesting one. Actually, that's not the right answer, but I'll get to the right answer in just a second. Service animals can be tricky. The law says you cannot ask the person for any documentation that the animal is a service animal. So I've been working with our city attorney's office on how to deal with this issue. People will bring, say someone comes in with a dog, and these days often they don't have any kind of identification on them. It used to be they'd wear a little thing on their back, and it was very clear that they were a service animal. But often that's not the case anymore. So someone comes in the library with a dog. What do you do? Yeah, people who fake it. Well, the law is we cannot ask them if it's a service or ask them for documentation. So what we do in my library with advice from our city attorney's office is we will go up to the person with the dog and we'll say, I'm really sorry, but you're not allowed to bring your dog into the library. So sometimes that, you know, if it's just them bringing their pet in, that they say, okay, you know, we'll go. If the person's response is, oh, this is a service dog, then we're done. We have to take their word for it. And I know that's really frustrating for my staff because I think not everyone is legitimate, but legally we cannot ask for documentation. We just have to take their word for it. Although my city attorney has told me the only animals, and this is probably just California, so it might be different in other states, the only animals that qualify as service animals are dogs and small horses. So I'm telling you, I cannot wait to see a small horse come through the front door. I told my staff, if that ever happens, come get me because I want to see it. So service animals are tricky. But getting back to this picture, no one guessed the answer to what community issue is represented here. And the answer is bed bugs. These happen to be bed bug sniffing dogs. So some of you may have heard. I know, ew. I was going to include a picture of a bed bug, but I thought that was too disgusting. So I'm including a picture of Molly on the left there and Buster on the right. So, yeah, you see somebody has heard of that. It's come up in some of our neighboring libraries in the Bay Area. I know it's a, thank you for not doing that. I guess she's referring to the picture.